Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Hoops Journey, episode 132. Again, if you can believe 132 episodes, the end of the month here, April 28th, we're going to celebrate 4 years of the podcast, which is pretty dope and fun. Also, number 32, Magic Johnson, my favorite basketball player of all time. But what we're doing today is we're going through the layers and the connections that we've been able to make through the show. Our friend Sam Payne at Parkside recommends this guy who was a writer and ended up being in Slam, who recommends the gentleman who we're going to sit down with today. And I love it. And I love being able to connect with different people in different fields. This is a guy who is behind the scenes a lot. And we just joked offline about his questions that he's asked me and the things that we've chatted about before recording this episode, the creative mind. And I'm really excited to dive a little bit into none other than Mr. Josh Kahn. I had to ask him how to say his name. Didn't want to butcher it. Gentleman is an award-winning producer, director. If you know what Uninterrupted is, then you probably will know what we're talking about today. Ended up having a job with Chicago Bulls, starting out there, and a super cool journey that we're going to dive into. And I'm really thankful that you're taking some time from your busy schedule to be with us today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. And you said episode 132. I thought it was episode 1. So you caught me off guard there. I thought I was the pilot. I'm excited to be here.
No, you're well seasoned. Yeah, you're well seasoned. We use one of my friends as like the pilot, so we could use them as the lab rat and make all the mistakes. Hopefully, our tools are a little bit sharper for people like yourself.
Totally. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be distinguished speaker number 132. It's an amazing run for you in the podcast.
Right on. Thanks, man. Yeah, and it has been fun just connecting with people and hearing more about their own personal journeys. As we chat here today, give us a little idea of how things are for you in your life these days and what the day-to-day is for you. I mean, you were a guy who clearly has an important online calendar on their phone with times and deadlines. So it was, a lot of people sometimes it's like, hey, I'm free here and there. And then for us to carve out a time and space between the two of us took some time, but well appreciated. So how's your life these days and what's going on with you?
Everything is great. I'm based out of LA these days and spend a lot of time between Los Angeles and New York, building my story lab and production studio, Miles, and really get to live my dream and my passion, which is working to tell the most interesting stories in the planet. Work with brands, work with athletes, work with celebrities, work with platforms to create really compelling and interesting content across an array of different mediums. So that's my day-to-day these days. It's one part creative, one part entrepreneurship, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right off the top, I'm curious, are you in a place now where people are knocking on your door to get you be a part of something? Is it 50% you see an adventure and you're like, hey, interested? How does that work for someone in your industry and what you do? Because I'm just typically curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, everything is situation dependent. There at the end of the day, and it's funny because I listened to Aaron's podcast, and it's like, there's creative, there's story, there's fun. It's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle in the way that he put it, and I would say that couldn't be more true. So, sometimes folks will reach out and be like, "Hey, we have this really specific story about this specific athlete, and would you come in and do this?" Or, there might be like, "Hey, would you develop it with us?" Other things out. So it really is situation based, and it's been an exciting journey and one that is in the early stages of unfolding. It's only been about 2 years that my firm has been around now.
Yeah, and that's cool. And we'll dive into that. So as we transition from kind of where you are now and just, almost like a rebuild or, a new venture for you for a couple of years, take us back to young Josh, life growing up, and just tell us a few stories about, were sports part of you? I think you have a really cool story about getting into school and why you chose the field you did. But what was life like for you as a young guy? And anything out there that the listeners want to hear?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and always enjoyed sports growing up. Was a Knicks fan during the '90s, but also like was at an age where you couldn't not help but love the '90s Bulls growing up.
Mm, mm.
Grew up a lowly Jets fan, which still plagues me. On the NFL side, balanced it out with being a Yankees fan and an Islanders fan, and was always just like I would say more of like I wasn't so much a fanatic as much I really like loved and appreciated like all the four major sports. Like even I played hockey growing up too, and
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I played basketball. Competitively until eighth grade, and then I became hooked with making films. I became obsessed with that, right around age 13, 14. And, I saw the commitment that it would take to play sports. And I wouldn't be able to do that and kind of follow what I just became supremely focused on. Worked a lot of part time jobs, saved up. This is like in the mini DV era
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
which I don't know if your listeners might even know what that is, like little digital video cassette tapes, and was making films mainly through high school to prepare my reel to hopefully find an opportunity to get into NYU Film School, which you know to me at the time seemed like the holy grail of it's almost like going to Duke basketball or North Carolina basketball, but for filmmaking. And I always
Hmm.
kind of envisioned it in that way. And so, my competitive fire as a filmmaker sort of comes from sport, in a way. But during those years and even into NYU, sports remained a pretty casual part of my life, one that I kind of always appreciated. And it really like brought my family together more. I was super close with my cousins. We all bonded over sports and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until towards the end of college, I was sort of interning and working across the entire entertainment industry of New York through college. And I interned at NBC Sports for the chairman at the time, who was Dick Ebersol, and who's a legend in his own right, and really worked in his executive office. Really for his assistants, he had an assistant. The president at the time, Ken Chanzer, had an assistant, and so I was, along with an NBC page, was the assistant to the assistants. When I was 21 years old, and I remember really fond memories of going into a storage room and trying to get something, and the storage room was just like iconic Olympics memorabilia that was just priceless. Like
Wow.
the arrow that was shot during, into the flame during like the '88 Olympics or whatever, and signed Michael Phelps. Like, that's the broadcast, like the IBC International Broadcast Center. And it's like Phelps is on every screen. It's signed by Michael Phelps. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so profound. And so that was my first foray into seeing that, like, oh my God, like I love sports. I love the sort of creative pedigree that I got at film school, which was definitely like an indie film sensibility. And
Hmm.
that's sort of, I think, where young Josh ends, I think, at
Hmm.
that stage.
I'm curious to be, 12, 13 years old and to be locked into like what you want to do for a career. Why is that? Is there a mentor? Is there a filmmaker that you're drawn to that you're just rewatching their films over and over? How does that mind start to unfold into that avenue for you at that age? And you having that mind's eye to be like, you know what? I'm going to go on the other side and just make films, and me and my buddies hanging out at school or skateboard or whatever it is, right? Like that's a young age to sort of have that focus.
Yeah, it's funny because that was brought up recently. I introduced, um, two people together, and one of them who had known me a long time was like, Josh always knew what he wanted to do. And I hadn't really thought about that
Hmm.
until you brought it up again, and it was brought up. But I guess it is a little, the folks
So
that
I wasn't the
really,
first, eh? Oh.
this was recently came up, but, you know, I, I, it's funny because the only other people that I've found that have that like early stage drive like that are athletes,
Hmm.
that sort of connect with that drive. to do something so early on in life and want to like follow that path. For me, it really probably started with school and kind of doing like group video projects. This is before video editing. And I really love the kind of the creativity plus sort of like the group centric, like team camaraderie element of it. Like I love the act of all the communicating and the trial and error. And I just found that the act of directing just really suited my personality. I'm someone that has a really high motor. I love to like communicate and over communicate. And it was just something that it really satiated me in some type of way that I always just like wanted to explore it more and continue to explore more. And at the time, the technology wasn't accessible. You didn't have a phone that, had everything in one. So I loved like exploring the tech of getting a new video camera and saving up for that and new editing software and learning those technological components. And then, I definitely had a teacher in high school that definitely like nurtured my sensibility to tell stories and, really just opened up a world that this could be a career. And so really encouraged me to apply to where I wanted to apply, which was to go to film school at NYU. And they really looked considerably at your reel of what you were making. And, I was able to set up my high school, which was a public high school, was really supportive and allowed me to take independent study even in my junior year to just make things I wanted to make and my teacher at the time, Jack DeMasi, he was a huge advocate of, supporting me through that and allowing me that, we had to work with the school to give me that ability to take independent study at a public high school in 2004, 2003 is pretty amazing. So, I definitely had that support that kind of, nurtured me in that direction.
I love that. Being a high school educator, obviously different system, Canada, but I feel like we're just in so many ways failing kids in terms of how we go about forcing content and curriculum in their face, and we don't do enough of those things and seeing, hey, when you're in up here we would say grade 10, it's a sophomore for you.
Yeah.
But just sort of going, what are your interests? What are you keen in? Let's start to focus in those areas as opposed to making you go to chem class or math class. If those things that those aren't things that you think you're going to apply. Yes, they can teach you some things, but can we narrow it down and look out for people like yourself who are showing a keen interest and try to help nurture that? I think is amazing. There must have also been some early on leadership skills because when you think of the word director, right, it can also be maybe like you think of someone who's like wagging the finger, but leading people to perform roles and get things done. Were you using those skills at that young age, or was it just kind of natural because it was your buddies? Because if you're handing in the group project, there's always the kid that's not going to do the work. There's the one that's overbearing. There's the ones that'll follow, So there had to have been a small little skill set there.
No, absolutely. It's always been somebody that is very gregarious and very social. And, at the time it wasn't like today where everyone has a phone. So like my interest in it alone, definitely like got a few of my friends like really sort of inspired to participate. And, I would always like make films and like be really eager to show people. And I was just really engaged. And I'm just a big person that believes in like, in order to lead, you got to generate buy-in. And that's like kind of how coaching works too, in a lot of ways. And, I definitely was able to generate a lot of buy-in, around my peers. It was just something that at the time was not, it was not something that was very common to be. And it's funny because I saw the Fablemans later on and watched, Steven Spielberg tell his story loosely, but the buy-in that he was, able to generate. And he was kind of like, if you gave the first kid a 8mm camera, obviously different technology, And so I found that really fascinating, really interesting how he was able to do that in an entirely different generation. But yeah, I mean, look, directing is like coaching. You know, it is like being a point guard. It is, being a floor general. It is thinking quickly in the moment. And it's something that has steered me my entire life. And my life wouldn't have unfolded this way had I not let being a storyteller guide me. I really let that lead me to the things that I've done in my life.
Love it. And I love how it's connected. In today's day and age, and maybe the difference might be where a coach, if I'm the kids that I coach at my school, I may teach or I see in the hall, you may get someone who's coming in to do a role, or people that you haven't connected with right away that in the end you've got to get buy-in from. Now that's the tricky part. What's the approach for you there? So that it's someone who's going to be involved. Is it a private conversation? Is it a coffee before so we can build some connection? How do you get to the point where they actually want to commit and buy in other than the paycheck or what's coming with the film? How do you go about that in today's age?
Well, I'll relate it in an even more like direct way to the sports world, because I've directed dozens of athletes in numerous projects, everything from like commercials to long form content, and a lot of times you're just arriving with a camera crew and it's all pre-arranged, and you have to get buy-in within moments of meeting somebody. And there's lots of tricks to the trade to be able to get buy-in and be able to get, one of the biggest stars in the world to, buy into what you're doing in a moment's notice. And so scaling buy-in from, being able to go to lunch with someone or have a conversation over the phone to, I need to be able to generate buy-in in a matter of moments, or this person who's already late that isn't interested could really blow up this thing that a lot of people are spending money on. So for me, I've learned to generate buy-in, in a matter of moments with an athlete. But buy-in is a transfer of energy. You really need people need to feel your energy first. And I think that, is something that I've always been keen on. But there's a lot of nuance to working with athletes and getting that buy-in. And, you speak to, tons of athletes all the time, tons of coaches, and it's not so different in certain ways, but we can go into the nuances of it. I'm guest lecturing this week at NYU's sports filmmaking class, their first class ever. So
amazing.
Hope to speak more into the intricacies of this later on this week.
Is that a new program? You say it's the first ever class. That's a new.
It's the first class within the film department. So it's a new class, but it's not a new curriculum. But I'm, super passionate about, directing content with athletes and, making powerful sports content. I mean, I'm a big believer that sports is the most powerful driver of social change. And, we can wax poetic on this all day, I'm sure.
Yeah, no doubt. That's dope that you get that opportunity, though. We probably could go forever on that. Totally agree, and it just great stuff. About the buy-in and the relation between all that. So, young you has that opportunity, right? We're finishing up with. Maybe you're not done, but NBC, you say that's when young Josh is sort of. What's the next step here? What's the next resume? Does something come across your plate? And how do you keep moving forward with your job and career and life?
Well, I'll tell you one quick story that sort of was my final farewell to NBC and into the real world. So, I spent most of my time there getting coffee, running around 30 Rock, really just doing office work. And, as I was wrapping up, the Panthers were playing the Giants at the end of December. It was like end of my semester and I was graduating early in December. And they said, we're doing Sunday Night Football at the Meadowlands if you'd want to come and be a production assistant. So I said, great, like would be happy to, was so excited, was even going to get, it was an unpaid internship and I was going to get paid $200 for the day to,
Sweet.
just be a production assistant. Yeah.
Let's go.
And I get there, it's freezing cold. I borrowed a buddy's like, super sub-zero jacket just to like withstand it. And like the first thing they asked me to do is just kind of like shovel the snow between the trailers where the broadcast trucks are. And I was like, oh my God, this is miserable. And then after, this is like, I'm there like maybe 6 hours before game time, 8 hours before game time. And then we're getting close to the game time. And they were like, could you take this golf cart and go pick up Al Michaels? He's arriving, so I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I take this golf cart to like the loading docks, and Al Michaels gets out of a limo and like gets onto the cart with me. And I'm really just driving through the Meadowlands now. I'm probably 21, and I'm like, oh my God, I have Al Michaels here. And he's humming it was like exactly what you would think Al Michaels would do. He was humming the like opening night theme to the show. Like he was so fired up, and I was so fired up because he was so fired up. And I dropped him off, and then they said, afterward, they're like, would you work in the box, and we'll give you a headset and just radio in the broadcaster's box. And it was Al Michaels and it was John Madden at the time. This is towards the end of John Madden's broadcasting career. And, I had never been in a broadcast booth, and there's free food and all this stuff. And my job was to radio to the broadcast team the spot of the yellow line, where to draw the yellow line. At the time, that's how it was done. You had to it was like -3 yards plus, because everything just has to be done so instantly. So That was just like a very profound story that I wanted to get out here because I've never told it in recorded fashion. But really special to just have that intersection with two icons, at that age. But that's kind of where young Josh ends. And then the economy collapsed right as I was interning there. It was impossible to get a job in any field. And this was at the time where applying online was brand new. Even my job at NBC was through applying online. And, I was getting rejections left and right. And, I decided to apply for a job in Chicago. It was an entry-level role with the Chicago Bulls. And I put my sister's Chicago address on my resume because I knew that they would not hire somebody or even interview somebody that was, from across the country for an entry-level role, especially in the economic market that I was facing at the time. So I got a call and they asked me to interview. And so got a plane ticket, brought a suit, changed in the bathroom of Midway Airport, rented a car, drove to the United Center, saw the Jordan statue, lost my mind seeing the Jordan statue, and then went into like a nondescript, like a 30-minute interview. Flew home, went to Northwestern for a night where my sister was, flew home. They called me again. They said, would you come down? And they thought I was from Evanston. I did the same thing. I got another flight and flew across the country, changed in the bathroom of Midway Airport into a suit, got a rental car. And now I knew the drill. So
they didn't connect the area code though, hey, on the cell phone? They weren't worried.
I had told them at the time that I was it was like summertime. It was like late August, early September. And that, I was kind of staying with my sister up in Evanston. And so that's where they thought I was at least coming from at the time.
Right. Okay.
And, I flew home and then I get a call saying, can you start in a week? And it was a new division of the organization at the time. It was to help build Bulls TV, which was like the mixed media arm of the organization. At the time, this was a very sort of new idea for a sports team to have, its own sort of mixed media production arm. I mean, when I'd started, they were evaluating getting a Facebook page. This is, Web 2.0. So anyway, I asked them to give me a week. I had to go to New York, tie some loose ends up. So within 10 days, I was in Chicago. I didn't have a place to live. I lived on campus at Northwestern, for probably 6 weeks while I started to look for a place downtown, and pretty much commuted between the United Center downtown and the Berto Center, which was the Bulls practice facility at the time, that was up in Deerfield near Evanston, where Northwestern is. And so that's where sort of adult Josh really begins, is, at the Chicago Bulls. And really, that's really where my hoops journey really begins.
If you're a basketball player out there in the Lower Mainland or BC in general, and you're looking for somewhere to play, we have a proud sponsor, and that is PGC Hoops. You can find them at pgchoops.ca. And the thing that makes them unique, and that we're proud to sponsor them and them be a sponsor of us, is it's a true nonprofit basketball organization found in the east side of Vancouver. The mission is cost-effective elite basketball for all. Find the website, take a look, register your kids, register yourself, look for the programs. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and we can contact you with the right people. This is a good program for the right reasons. We appreciate you, PGC Basketball. You use terms like mixed media and stuff for the people like myself. Like, what exactly are you doing? So it's kind of funny because it's not that long ago. I mean, that's what I tell myself when I don't want to feel too old. But like you say, we're joking about when you think about how fast it's happened. You're considering a Facebook page, and now look at the content that just comes out every single day. Like we always talk with our kids, like, do you even watch a full game anymore? And I think the majority of them just watch clips, right? That passion for the game, but everything is so there for them. So what are you doing on a day-to-day basis with the Bulls at this point? And obviously things go well for you because it starts to snowball a little bit.
Yeah. So I got there, and, I was not.
Also, that's a wild story. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Like you've already mentioned once, your intern job. And so you finally get paid a couple $100 and look how the day ends up for you. But just sort of for young people out there that maybe are a little bit guilty, or people in general, of just thinking that things should come easy. It's like, no, you really got to put your head down and you got to take some risks and you got to get uncomfortable and you got to change in the airport bathroom and you got to do what you got to do to make it happen, especially in a time where jobs are thin and you got to go for it and be uncomfortable a little bit.
No, you're absolutely right. And when I speak to kids, I talk to them about grit. And, even when I'm looking to hire people, I look for grittiness. That's one of the most important things to me. And, you had brought up, that it was nice that someone at my school had, seen my passion for this to go into independent study. But the truth is, I made them. I pushed everybody around me, and that's what you really need to do in these day and age. You really need to push on every level. I tell people too, the fortune is in the follow-up. I'm someone that's, very much, very engaged, always reaching out to people, always kind of looking to impart, my vision in some type of way. And, you really need that motor to kind of push through, the sea of saturation that exists. So to your points,
agree.
None of this is possible without, yeah.
In Mr. Phillips' episode, one thing that resonated with me is he said something to the effect of, I send a new email to someone every day, someone I don't know, just reach out, communicate. And I was like, wow, that really, that struck me. It's similar to what you're talking about.
Aaron is the king. He is an inspiration in that regard. I mean, nobody makes things happen better than him. Talk about energy and motor and passion. It doesn't top Aaron Phillips. And Aaron's a big part of my journey, which I'm sure we'll get to. but I'm really just living in his shadow.
Relax. That's not true. Not at all. But he does have a good story, and he's one of those people you can just pick up on his energy instantly, right? So, but talk about that.
Absolutely.
What were you doing with the Bulls, and what are the things that you can share in terms of building or growing, and it's just such different conversations then as opposed to now.
Yeah. So it's to your point about where media is at today. It's tough to conceive of what it was like back then. This is really like pre-Instagram. Twitter is just kind of emerging. YouTube is around, but also still people are not sure what to do with these platforms in a way. It hadn't fully matured. The Bulls had the really sort of progressive sense that like they saw an opportunity to humanize their athletes and tell stories about the players. That's really what they wanted to do. They wanted to humanize the team. They wanted to humanize the athletes, and it was really brilliant, on the part of management at the time on the business ops side to see this opportunity. And so it was really a blank slate. Originally my boss had come from a live news background, and he was very focused on building that sports information, getting really interesting interviews, building a live show. And I was really focused on things that could be accomplished through digital sort of media filmmaking. At the time, I was, one of the first people to kind of come out of that world organically, the sort of digital video creator world. And so when I'm talking about mixed media, I'm really talking about, it used to be that like you have commercials, you have, new media was like, sort of internet content at the time. Then we had, scoreboard content. And so this term is me just kind of like, making an amalgamization of it all into mixed media. And the truth is what we look at right now is mixed media, in terms of everything that we're looking at. I mean, right now I'm watching, we're doing a podcast on Zoom. I'm watching, Aaron TV, you're watching Josh TV on the Zoom screen. So, mixed media is a interpretive term, I guess. But, I at the time, I was 22. And, I remember the first event that we were brought to that during preseason, there's a sequence of events that teams have to do, in order to engage the fan base. And the Bulls had something called Paint the Town Red, where they went to the Watertown Place Mall, I believe it is, like in the center of the city, and they would sign autographs for like thousands of people. And so we went to this mall, and we're there, the team is showing up separately. They're commuting from, and this is like Derrick Rose's right after he wins Rookie of the Year. This is that. And sweet. I was like, I'm these guys in my head. I'm like, I'm these guys' age. They'll instantly, like, I'll be able to connect with them, whatever. These guys get off the team bus. They go upstairs. They all have their hoods on. They're all, way taller than I imagined. Cause like, I didn't grow up really playing basketball past a certain point. So I'm not really around athletes. But I remember, meeting them all for the first time. They're very tired from practice. There's a lot going on. And it hit me that this was going to be a little bit more challenging than I anticipated. It's not like the days of today where they had social media. At the time, if you did content, you were considered Hollywood. It was like this idea that like maybe you weren't serious about your sport. Like that was just kind of like the underlying connotation. So I spent many years really building deep relationships with these athletes, and, credit to my boss at the time who, really understood how to lay the foundation for that and put me in a position to start to be around these guys, to have more organic conversations and, get them to feel comfortable opening up on a deeper level. And, I remember some of the first guys that I've, went back to their homes. I think Taj Gibson was a rookie my year. So like, I look at it like we were in the NBA. We came in the same year. So was James Johnson. But, Taj and his brother, credit to his brother, was really saw the value in us coming in and doing like deeper storytelling with him. Um, and, that was really my first sort of foray into working with an athlete directly on like deeper doc work. And, I got to know Taj over the years, and, I've worked with so many other incredible athletes that we'll get into. But, in those early days, we were just looking to build relationships. And then I was really looking to find ways to flex my creative muscle. And pretty much they told me, like, if it doesn't cost us any money and it doesn't take up from your responsibilities, like, we're open to it.
Oh,
so I
dope.
would start writing like these totally.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, I really loved working for that organization, and it was an extremely special time, and very, very grateful to everybody there. And they really gave me an opportunity to just really experiment with different things. And now, like, content is this sort of creative necessity, but at the time it was like, what should we do? What should we try? And I remember I would collaborate with Benny, the mascot. I've done all sorts of like really wild, mind-blowing stunts with Benny the Bull. I've jumped out of an airplane with Benny the Bull, with the U.S. Army. It goes across the board, but really, while
like
I was
you jumped out with him too.
So we made a project.
You had someone else film it.
Like, so the U.S. Golden Knights are the U.S. Army's skydiving team.
Okay.
And the Army had a partnership with the Chicago Bulls at the time. And, it was something where it was some sort of make good. And the U.S. Army the Golden Knights were in town for the Chicago Air Show, and they were at an airfield just outside the city. And, the sponsorships team asked me if we had any ideas with Benny that we could do with the Army. And I was like, yeah, let me write this sort of sketch about Benny, like being a paratrooper. And like, it's kind of like, I did a lot of like mockumentary style work. And I always loved that style. I love directing scripted projects. So it was a cool balance. And like, this is on the fly content. This is like, an old HD video camera and like a stick mic sort of type stuff. But yeah, we shot this whole thing and let's just say Benny is multi-talented and was able to jump and they just had all the paratroopers with cameras on just jump with him. And we weren't really allowed to jump. But as soon as we wrapped shooting, the paratroopers were like, this was so fun. But they're like, we jump all day. Like, if you're free, do you want to jump? Do you want to go up and jump? And I was like, these are the guys that would jump George Bush Sr. when he would jump on his birthday every year. And I was like, look, if I was ever going to have an opportunity to jump out of a plane, it's going to be with the U.S. Army right now. Yeah. So they
Your
sat
best
us down
and safest
for
bet.
Yeah. So they sat us down for a 10-minute like briefing, and then they strapped me to, a paratrooper, and, never expected to jump out of an airplane that day. But those were some of the types of adventures that we had during that time, which were really incredible. And that piece isn't even like one of my favorite pieces. It's just a fun story. So between that and then some of the athletes I had an opportunity to work with while I was there, I mean, really special. And we had an opportunity to really build first-in-class content at a time when everyone was still trying to figure out what content was. And it really enabled us to be, a leader in the league and in pro sports, during my time there, which was incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it's funny to think, like, I just assumed that everybody had the same idea and vision, and that, but I guess it does take one or two of the franchises to take the risk and go for it and think differently. And then the other ones go, oh, we better catch up here, or else, we're going to be a little bit behind. And it's funny to think, like you're saying, about how, like I go on TikTok and there's someone just, giving knuckles to every guy that walks in the locker room, or handing out chocolate, or some sort of prank. It's just like a common thing now, it's very cool. I love hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm a big believer that the athletes of today are better storytellers than we were back then, which is incredible. You look at Jared McCain, Jared, right? That's his, incredible storyteller in his own right. So, the sophistication of everyone just off, because the technology is just, essentially democratized creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something, as we went into Uninterrupted, and I was, part of that journey, which we'll get into,
Mm-hmm.
really was the beginning of the sort of evolution of athletes beginning to empower themselves to take creative ventures into their own hands in that regard. But anyway, getting back to the Bulls, if there's any specific questions or things that you want to chat through there, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'd like to know, like, what are you most proud of in your time there? What are some of the things that you look back and go, yeah, that was really, really solid. I'm really proud that we were able to do that as a team.
I mean, look, I'm really proud that, that division of the company is still there and making
Mm-hmm.
incredible things. There's numerous campaigns and things that we had done. We made the campaign for the 50th season, which was really special. All the athletes that I had an opportunity to work with, Pau Gasol, I think was just nominated to go into the Hall of Fame. Um, you know, Carlos Boozer, and now watching like what his sons are doing, like it's super special to see. I had an opportunity to meet his sons when they were like 4 or 5 years old, and like I knew that these kids were going to be pro athletes back then. So that's super special to
That's
be able
cool.
to look back on that. Watching Jimmy Butler get drafted, watching him evolve as a person and as a player was super special. Watching Derrick Rose, ascend to certain heights, then watching him battle back was super inspiring. There's a reason why he's still in the league. I mean, one of the best guys, away from the game that I've
Right.
ever come across. And, um, it was all really, really special. And, you know, even having an opportunity to, interact with Hall of Famers like Scottie Pippen. And, I've had a chance to, you know, work with Scotty, in multiple different ways since then, so,
Mm-hmm.
um, I really cherished that time, and it was, something that, I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. It's cool. I think too about the conversation that we're having here. Absolutely loving it. Talking about early on, just someone you haven't met right away, building those relationships, and now it makes total sense. It's like you're in this phase of, it's just natural for guys, and some of them don't have social media. Like an Andrew Wiggins, for example, pretty low key kind of guy. Obviously, you're not going to push the boundaries with them, but early on, trying to convince these dudes who are walking in their hoods, saying like, "No, don't worry. Like, we're not going to expose you, make you look silly. Would trust us." And now you're using that skill set to today. Like, I think it's really cool, man. There's so many full circle moments for you, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my life has imitated my art, and then my art has imitated my life, which is really special and the only thing you can really hope and dream for. So, um, but yeah, my time there was really special. And, while I loved Chicago, was really looking to move closer to the entertainment space, where
Hmm.
I really initially had always set my career up to go in that direction.
So that's
And
in the back of your mind is this is good. This is a great job, but I know that there's other things I want to accomplish. How does that transition happen? When do you know it's time to move on? And how do you know that the next phase is there for you? As thankful as you were for the Bulls and that relationship.
well, like I said, could not be more grateful for my time there. I think for me, I'm not from there originally. I'm from the East Coast, and never envisioned or and thought I would ever live in Chicago ever. And the reason I stayed so long was partially because I just loved that team and loved the environment, and always kind of knew that I was going to leave there to get closer to the original vision.
Hmm.
And I didn't know if it would involve sports still or not. But obviously that was at the point like where my experience base was. And I spent some time really trying to figure out what would be next, and looking at opportunities and having conversations. And nothing comes without like the legwork of really trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone. I had some opportunities to go to other sports organizations and whatnot, and and some markets in some places that just wasn't really where I wanted to be at the next stage of my life, just proximity wise. I really was going to go back to New York, or I was going to go to Los Angeles, which is somewhere where I really wanted to be. And uh, I would spend a lot of time. I would take my vacation time at the Bulls to just go out to LA and just meet people. And I was introduced to a series of folks, and saw an opportunity at the time to apply for a job at what was Uninterrupted, which was really just selfie videos at the time. It was, people don't realize that was really a thing that, selfies were not or an organic thing originally. I remember when I was at the Bulls and selfie became a word that was like integrated into the dictionary. And so, I was really intrigued by the role, and I was introduced to a couple of folks, and ultimately led me to be introduced to Aaron Phillips, who was really like an early employee at Uninterrupted. He was probably in the top first 3 employees. I was in the first 15 at the time, and this is even before the larger Spring Hill sort of conglomeration. And Aaron really was such a fan of a lot of the work that I was doing in the basketball space, and really was, we had really connected over just our passion for telling stories. And, we kind of just complimented each other, him with like a very like producerial, development focused mindset, and me with a little bit more of like a creative, execution, filmmaker focused mindset. So we were kind of like both ends of the spectrum. And he was really, someone that really helped set the stage for me to have an opportunity to be the first producer at the time at Uninterrupted. And that's where, I moved cross country again to LA and started my career, going from, here's the 10 players on the team, here's the stadium, here's the mascot, here's the dancers, to it could be an athlete in any city with a crew that you have to assemble. And it could be anywhere about anything. So and this was at a time where, credit to Mav and LeBron, because they really ushered in this, what's called the player empowerment movement. And I remember sitting in meetings with other athletes, and we would have to try to explain why there was power in telling your story in the early days. And now people don't question that. But that was a change in thinking that took shape around that like 2017, 2018, 2019 time.
Why do you think that
is? And,
like, why didn't they see the value in it? Is it just because it wasn't commonplace yet, or people weren't ready to expose that part of themselves? Or
I have a few different things. I think that one, like the proliferation of cell phone technology, has only continued to increase. The maturity of influencers and these businesses. I mean, look, you see the trends today. Like, the Kelsey brothers have, an extremely popular podcast, and if anything, athletes now, because they see the success of an athlete or to do something, they say, "Oh, I'm interested in that. Let me try that." So that's part of it. At the time, LeBron was really at the forefront of this. Like, LeBron really is one of the first. He was executive producing movies as early as More Than a Game. They had the show on Stars, Survivor's Remorse. He was really building a media empire from a very earlier point in his career than other athletes weren't so much paying attention to. That area, and credit to LeBron for his ability to sustain greatness, off the court and on the court. I mean, I think it's incredible. I think he's the greatest basketball player of all time, and that comes from someone that worked for the Chicago Bulls. So, but which we can get into that. But I think that LeBron leading the way and being the first to do some of these things, and seeing the success of it inspired a lot of athletes that are of his generation and maybe a little older, a little younger at the time. But then the younger generation of athletes that really just came up with it organically, like they don't really know anything else. So if you're under 25 in the NBA, you know nothing else but like the player empowerment movement in a way. So it's sort of a perfect storm of things, and they really understood where it was going. And now you see so many athletes, they have their own production companies, they have their own podcasts. And look, sports is really big business, and athlete created content, athlete centric content is a huge component of the shoulder programming of the main event, which is the sporting events and the live rights, which is obviously at the center of the content live cable disruption that's happening. So I think it's all really important and also really integrated.
We are super excited to announce another sponsor of a Hoops Journey podcast. There's many ties and layers to this one, as Mike and Jeff, the owners of Mountain West Roofing, are going to sponsor. We're so thrilled to have them aboard. Mike is a Pitt Meadows grad, a huge proponent, supporter of Coach Goulet, who we've had on the podcast, a legendary coach in British Columbia. You can reach out to us. They also run a tournament called the Coach G Classic. It will be this summer, July 7th and 8th. If you and a few buddies want to get a run in and enjoy hooping, please contact the podcast. We can get you in direct contact with Mike or Jeff, and they'd love to have you sign up for the tournament. But why Mountain West Roofing? Other than just being really good dudes, I recently just had them over at my house. They were there within days, fixed a pretty bad leak in our roof, and took care of a whole bunch of other issues we were having. Professional, job was done, well priced. They love basketball. They love the community. They're very supportive, and we'd really like to recommend you reaching out if you need anything done. You can go to their website, mwroofing, roofing.ca. Read the reviews, read what they're all about. Very professional. Contact them, and they'll take care of you. I guarantee it. I will put my name and our podcast name for these guys, and we are so thankful that they are a sponsor. Reach out to them. Holy smokes. So, through all these conversations, uninterrupted, and everything keeps snowballing, are you just head down, still working? When's the moment where you get that project where you're like, okay, like this is the one? Now, I'm sure there were a few along the way where, even just little moments with the Bulls, I'm sure you had, right? That they give you the clean slate and say, hey, don't cost us money. And, don't ruin the franchise, and you got carte blanche. But is there one project or something that you get to be a part of where you're like, all right, I'm loving this, like this is the one? Or do you not want to minimize the others? Have I put you on the spot too badly?
A lot of projects I've found that it's actually not on a silver platter when it starts. Like most filmmakers and content creators have to make something great many times over before they're given Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? And so I wouldn't ever feel like, oh, this project is anointing me. If anything, especially, you're working for a startup or you're working for a new division, a lot of times, it's going to be as great as you can make it. And so I found that a lot of my projects would start with, one thing, and then by the time that they were made, there would be much more attention on them by the time that they were fully realized. And so, that's my general philosophy. I do remember, I was asked to direct. I directed 40 days leading up to Canelo's fight, and Mav and LeBron EP'd it. And that was a really, big fight for Canelo. He was going up in weight class. One of the greatest pound for pound fighters in the world. It was all coming together really fast. And the fact that everyone really entrusted me to kind of be at the center of this thing. And that's the thing, like, when people are entrusting you to get the job done is really like the ultimate sort of signal that like, oh, we know that like, this guy's going to come back and, make something amazing. And so 40 days is like the equivalent of like, 24/7 boxing on HBO Sports or Showtime. And so, kind of tracking Canelo, who at the time, and I don't know what the rankings are now, but that was a whole new world for me. As someone that had done a lot of basketball, done a lot of football at the time, to go into that space and direct him and Kovalev at the time. But then we used celebrity voices to like kind of talk about the nuances of whatever was happening through the training of a boxer and translating it into their areas. So like we sat down Draymond Green for that, who I've worked with several times, who's just an incredible guy, an incredible interview. DJ Khaled was in that.
Another one.
And a couple others. Yeah, exactly. And so like, just, I don't know if I'm giving you a precise answer, but
no, you are.
That was just a project that, had a lot of firepower that at the time they were entrusting me to work on. And that was, really special. And there's countless other stories and projects. But really grateful to those guys and the opportunities that I've had through that organization, which I still collaborate with. And I think that what they've done and are doing continues to break through. And I'm sure we'll continue to do so.
Yeah. Awesome. We could go forever here. Okay. I got a couple questions just to wrap it up, and then we'll do some fun questions and you can go enjoy the rest of your day. How's that sound?
I got hours. We can dive in.
Careful what you wish for, buddy. I told you my wife's away and my kid's not off school for a couple hours. So I'm just curious. You're in the heart of a project. Let's say it's the peak of the stressful times. What do you do? What's your approach? Are you a routine guy? Like, I've got to get up in the morning, have my morning tea or coffee, my quiet time, my yoga, my meditation, my reading. Like, what do you do for yourself, knowing that, I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong, someone in your career, the peaks and valleys of stress, right? Like, you may have weeks where you're just collaborating with people, talking is a little more casual, but then when we're starting to roll film, there's timelines, there's money, so I'm assuming that maybe not, maybe it's all stressful, or maybe you're just so good at it, it doesn't stress you out. But what does someone like yourself in your role do to maintain a good, healthy mindset?
Yeah, I mean, look, I when I was younger, I wasn't as great at like cultivating a morning routine or self-care, but I'm somebody that, I found that, and you see this in sports all the time, especially with like the younger guys, they often hit a wall where talent can't get them by anymore. And it becomes, you need to, find those little extra areas or refine your mental wellness to a point where you're able to, it's not just perform, but sustain over time. And what I found, when I moved to Los Angeles and was really working at a really high level, and the volume and the intensity, was that I needed to change my mindset, and I needed to change how I structured my life. And so my morning routine became very important to me. I usually, I try to get outside first thing. I try to get something in my stomach first thing. I try to drink 8 ounces. Well, the first thing I do is I drink 8 ounces of water. That's the first thing I do in the morning. Then I try to get something in my stomach. I try to get outside, get some sunlight. Then I try to get to the gym. I try to live my life through a wellness focused lifestyle first, and everything else comes second. That wasn't always the case for me, but it's something that, the only way you can play offense in life is if you are able to prepare yourself to play offense. Otherwise, you're playing defense. And that's something that hit me several years ago once,
Poetic, man. Sorry, keep going. Church on
No,
a
and so
Monday, buddy. Love it.
no, but if you want to sustain, any form of greatness, the difference between good and great is consistency.
Mm,
And so, for me, it was about creating, mental and emotional consistency to sustain, being able to produce at a high level or deal with rejection constantly or whatever it is. And so that's, creating structure is so important, and creating consistency is so important to being able to do anything breakthrough. And if you read a book like Mastery, for example, I don't know if you've ever heard of that book,
mm-hmm.
but every person the common trait of every person that's ever achieved something incredible is their ability to cope with the stress and anxiety that came with breaking through. And, that's really the key to the game, is like, how do you keep yourself composed and well maintained while moving into uncharted territory, whether it's creatively or in your job or in your life. Navigating uncharted territory is the thing that brings a lot of people a ton of stress.
Sorry, I'm just writing down my own personal notes. I
No
love it,
worries.
man. You touched on one thing there, and is the ability to deal with rejection, right? And how did that transform for you? I'm sure as a younger person, like you're talking, but we can survive with less structure, right? When we're younger, we're running on this weird fuel that we have, and then you realize, and you hit a certain age, and you're like, damn, I can't do this anymore. Was it the same thing with rejection, or did you take it offensively at first, or did you realize it was part of the process? Because I think it's one thing that people of all ages struggle with, especially young people.
Absolutely. I'm somebody that, I always knew rejection was going to be part of being in this business from a very young age. And I was really hungry to get all the experience that I could get at a young age. And even things that weren't related to my career, I kind of tried to find ways to tie that experience into my career in some type of way. And so this one story in particular, while I was in college, I definitely did a series of odd jobs as well. And so one of my odd jobs was that I was a permission-based marketer, also known as a telemarketer. And so I was a telemarketer for sort of like a IT solutions company.
Okay.
And it really had nothing to do with my career or anything, but I just heard so much rejection throughout that. And I just knew that this is just hardening me up. This is just getting me primed. And the truth is you got to really take rejection, and you need to put it in the fuel tank, and you got to just keep letting it get to that fuel tank. Because the truth is that, when it comes to this type of work, the cavalry isn't coming, which is a quote that I've heard, nobody's going to, put you on a pedestal and say, you're the greatest, and we want to make your film and whatever. You have to kind of go out there, and you need to make things happen and knock on doors and, continue to build it yourself. And once you've built it and people see how great it is, then they'll trickle in. But the truth is you really got to kind of go through the mud first. And look, being resilient is such an important part of life. And I'm sure that you see that too in your day to day as well with some of the kids that you teach and mentor. And I couldn't stress that skill enough to anybody. I look for people that are gritty and resilient. Talent's great, but grit and resilience is, really, I think, what makes, anything great these days.
Agree. Well said. Amazing. Okay, we've never had a former telemarketer on the show. Curious, what's the success rate? What's the percentage? Is it 8? How many people are oh yeah, for sure, that sounds fantastic,
Let's put it this way. My role wasn't even to close. My role was to generate leads. So it was okay, do they have general attention? Do they have conviction or desire? And essentially all the conviction desire folks, then they because I was in college, so I was here's the list of all the conviction desire folks, and I would get paid a commission to label who those were, and they would send that off to like the actual sales people that would then kind of talk to the warm leads. So yeah, no, it was definitely interesting work, but I look at everything that I've done as part of what's made my character, and I think everybody should, like there's no part of your journey that's not worth unpacking and seeing like how it helped lead you to this point. So yeah, I mean, look, I can go in depth. I mean, when it comes to motivation and self-help, it's something I'm super passionate about. And, I give advice and perspective to a lot of different folks in a lot of different industries on this stuff. So this could be a separate podcast. Should you start another one?
I love it too, man. And I just, you're bang on. And I don't know, I love this stuff too. And you have a total huge growth mindset. Like I've mentioned, people will barf on the show that listen to it. Like I love Brene Brown. Like I love Simon Sinek. I love these people who see the globe differently and they have growth mindset and want to, think different and aren't afraid to be vulnerable and show courage and then resilient. And I think there's so many things that we can teach young people through these people and our own life experiences, which is like the thing that you're talking about, the power of this new media. And now that these kids do see an athlete who, to me, like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, weren't tangible. It was NBC Sports on maybe Saturday morning, and maybe in the 90s when there was a little more consistency of games. These people, like, if you ever got a chance to go to a game and like get near them or like see them or touch them or watch them play live, that was it. Now it's like you can know as much as Taj Gibson wants to share with you, right? How much he chooses to. And it's just power through conversations. We can learn so much. So I agree. Maybe that will be the side. Maybe I just need to retire and start 2 podcasts that don't make any money. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll give you my wife's number. You can convince her. Okay.
There you go.
Well, I'm looking forward to the first fun question then, because, and I'm getting right to it because is it books or movies? Which is ironic because you do one's for a living, but I'm guessing you seem like a bit of a reader or a thinker. Like there's something there.
I read nonfiction.
Okay.
I've read a ton of self-help books. But I'm definitely more of a film guy.
Is there a self-help book or is there one that's on the shelf that you kind of reference back to? Or if you were to give us a small suggestions, hey, this one's worth checking out. Is there one out there that you can think of?
I love the 4 Agreements. That's like a simple, fundamental one that anyone can jump into. The Power of Habit, really great read. Emotional Intelligence. A lot of these books too, they end up having similar messages sort of repackaged differently.
True.
And it doesn't matter where you start as long as you're committed to changing and growing and and honestly, for me, it wasn't even like, oh, I want to commit to changing and growing. It was more like, I actually don't have a choice. And that's what people don't realize is that there's actually no choice, that like in today's day and age where, mental health, is really so susceptible to being affected by cell phones and external, factors across the board. You actually don't have a choice in the matter. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize is that like you actually do have to make a conscious effort to grow and to find a way to dig deeper into some of these areas. Because I think the first inclination with self-help can be, oh, well, that like sounds silly. And that's how I felt about it. I was like, oh, this seems like some positive garble and whatever. But when you realize that there's actually no other way around your reality in growth, that's what hit me the hardest. And so, I'm always someone that's looking to get better and improve. And I do think about my skill set and my craft like an athlete. So.
That was my mic drop right there, buddy. These kids at NYU have no idea what's coming for them when you get stepped through that door, man. That's fantastic stuff. Jeez.
Oh my God, I appreciate it.
You're right up my
me.
alley. Yeah, man. Tell me about some movies, films. Okay, so you know you're gonna go films over movies, but give us a little more
films over books.
Yeah. Sorry, films over movies. Yeah, you got me so fired up. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. What do you got? Was there some all-timers?
All-timers. I'll give you one of my favorite docs.
Okay.
It's June 17th, 1994. It's appropriate because I guess OJ passed away, but it's directed by Brett Morgan, who's an incredible doc filmmaker. And it was one of the original 30 for 30s. And that film has no interviews in it. It's all source footage from that day.
Wow.
June 17th, 1994, which is one of the biggest sports days ever.
I've definitely seen it.
What happened on that day?
I got to go back.
Oh, you have seen it. Okay.
Oh yeah, but keep going. I got to go back now. Now that you say like there's no interviews, I'm like, really? I got to go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stunning portrait and piece of filmmaking that really takes you through that day. Because on that day, Arnold Palmer played his last round of golf. Ken Griffey was the fastest to 40 home runs. The Knicks were playing in the NBA Finals, Game 5. The Rangers had just won the Stanley Cup.
Oh.
And the World Cup was opening in the United States. And then on top of that, OJ ran from the cops. And so the amount of news footage covering all these events that was then interrupted by, the whole OJ thing is just really fascinating to watch, what transpired. And then they do backstory on OJ, but they do it through old videos and commercials. And, I've seen like a lot of the other stuff out there about this stuff, but nothing gave me a more chilling, perspective on the day than this film. And it's something that's always stuck with me. The other film I rave about to people these days in the doc side is Navalny. I think Navalny is just an incredible film and, won the Academy Award the year prior, but that's also just a film I can't stop raving about. Something that just grips you from beginning to end, and is just the right cacophony of incredible access, incredible story, great filmmaking. But now on the sports side, they're making all of these docuseries at such a high level. The caliber of the work that's being put out is really incredible. So you can open up any platform and find something pretty compelling. I hear the Tour de France one is great. I haven't seen that one, but someone was recently raving to me about that one.
Whatever you're doing right now, listening at work, rolling in your whip, going for a walk, whatever it is, hang on for a sec. You like jerseys? You like stance socks? You like throwback? You like shoes? You like anything related to basketball? Hit up ATOB Ball. And if you're not able to be there in store at Langley Event Center, check them out on the web. And I guarantee you'll find something you like. Give us a mention and you'll never know. Shout out to our boy Jeff. ATOB Ball for life. Fantastic. Especially, I was just going to touch on the sports that maybe I wasn't even familiar with. I can't count how many people I know that got into Formula One because of the Netflix series, right? And it's so well done. It's fantastic. And now colleagues are getting up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday to watch some race, right? And I'm like, I'm not going that far. I'll snuggle up with the wife and watch the show, but I'm not. But it's crazy. I'll give you one that I want you to check out. I went to a high school named after Terry Fox. I don't know if you know who Terry Fox is. He's a Canadian here. He lost his leg to cancer in the 80s, and he attempted to run across Canada on a prosthetic. And we're talking like a 1980s prosthetic,
Amazing.
Right? So, yeah. And so Steve Nash ended up he's got a 30 for 30 called Into the Wind.
Cool.
and it's about Terry Fox.
Into the Wind.
Into the Wind, yeah.
I'm gonna write that
And
down.
Terry doesn't make it, but to this day, the Terry Fox Foundation has raised hundreds of $millions towards cancer research. Ryan Reynolds is a huge supporter of him. Like, it's so very cool. So check it out and let me know what you think of it if you get a chance when you're got some free time, which is never.
No, I definitely will. And I'm
Awesome.
would love I love a good recommendation. So it's perfect.
Cool. Good. Okay, a few more questions for you. Dead or alive, artist, doesn't matter. Best seat in the house. You're at MSG or some beautiful auditorium in Cali. I don't know, wherever you want to go. You take whoever is important to you. Who are you going to see? Who's on the top of that list? Maybe you've seen them already, or maybe you haven't seen them yet and you want to see them. What do you got?
I mean, I would love to see Paul McCartney. I would love to, just like I used to work in the United Center. So I had the ability to hear every sound check and see a lot of different artists. I saw the Rolling Stones. I saw the Who. I saw Drake, Kanye, even the ones that I didn't even want to see, or Jay-Z, I saw there. Even the ones I didn't want to see, I heard the sound check for Madonna and Barbara Streisand. So who else have I seen there? I've seen Roger Waters there. I've seen Stevie Wonder there. And I'm very fortunate to have seen a lot of live music that I've always wanted to see. You're gonna have to. I mean, it's definitely going to be at the Hollywood Bowl, best venue, music venue. I'm a big Hollywood Bowl fan, but I need to get back to you on who that person would be right now. Okay. I think, like I said, Paul McCartney is just such an icon that I haven't had the chance to see. Mm-hmm. Sort of the last one that I would love to check out, but obviously there's tons of contemporary artists, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. But it would be at the Hollywood Bowl, which is my favorite venue.
There we go. Okay. Who have been some of the most important people in your life?
I think there's been a ton of important people. I'd have to say, my parents have been extremely just influential in my life. And, I really haven't even lived near them for the last, I haven't lived in New York properly in 15 years, but I'm extremely close with them and spend a lot of time in New York with them. And I've learned some of the best lessons. And, look, I took a non-traditional path in life, and they, could have, been very unsupportive of that. And they, I've always nurtured my desire to be creative and to kind of follow the things I was interested in. So I have to kind of put them at the top of that list as maybe it's the obvious answer, but it's the true one.
Yeah. Some people don't end up having the best relationship with their parents, right? It varies, right? So, and I'm sure, behind a closed door, probably, every now and then, maybe when you're younger, they're like, oh God, really? Is this what he wants to do? But what you saw was support and love, and that's all that matters. And they allowed you to be who you were, and look how it's worked out, right?
There was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of that early on. But, when they came to Chicago and they got to see, they got to be, stand on the court and kind of see where this could take somebody in a journey. I think they were really, that was really special to watch that experience happen. So, but there was a little bit of that in the earlier days.
I'm a big Cubs guy. Hey, that's my team. I was in Seattle. They were just in Seattle for a 3-game series. So me and 3 buddies just went down. We just got back yesterday. So I've been to the Chi a couple times, and one of my buddies who lives in Chicago, yeah, he just got a condo near right in Wrigleyville. So I'm like, okay, honey, might have to make a road trip in the summer. So we'll see.
That is talk about iconic venues. I think I saw Keith Urban there years ago. I think
probably.
But what an incredible venue, and I've had a chance to be there with Bulls players that have sung the "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Oh yeah,
I was there with Kyle Korver. Kyle Korver sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." A couple other guys, but yeah, awesome. No, what an awesome venue. Wrigley Field is one of my favorites all time.
So good. Okay, so you got some quiet time. You're going to jump into and watch some sort of docu, but you're feeling a little munchy. If you were to take the risk and have a bag of chips, is there a favorite flavor or something out there that you're going to? Is there a go-to?
Is there a go-to just general snack or
Sure. I mean, we go specifically chips, but it's your episode. You can do what you want.
chips?
It's just probably the most important question that we've talked about so far. So, try not to blow it here, pal.
uh, man, it's funny. I've been doing a lot of like the flat pretzels with like buffalo chicken dip at Trader Joe's recently.
Ooh.
That's kind of yeah. That one always is like too addictive for me. Like I kind of have to be a little like, you can just start eating that and not stop and forget where you are. I eat kind of fast. Like have to learn to slow down a little bit. But that one, I'll say that one for now. I don't want to like, alienate any of my chip sponsors otherwise,
Yeah, fair. That's fair. Next time we're down in Bellingham, Washington, we'll look for that dip at Trader Joe's. It's always a spot for my wife to stop at, so I'll make sure I grab some of that. Yeah. I don't know how we want to take this one because it's a player based. Do you have 5 favorite players all time? Have you thought that far?
Yeah, I read your question. Your question was like 5 players you'd want to like take the floor with, which is different than like 5.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
oh, you got this. Let's go.
I mean, look, LeBron number 1. Like, I don't even think that's an argument. And I could sit here and have a podcast about why that's not an argument. But I'm gonna go with LeBron.
This guy went from not being sure. He's questioning. I want to know about this now. He wants 5 different episodes with me. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, it's different because, like, at first when you said who would you take the floor with, I wouldn't necessarily pick the 5 best guys in the NBA. I'd probably pick like the 5 guys that I might know. You know, like
let's go.
But no, I'll give you my top 5 all time right now.
Okay.
So I would go LeBron. I would put Shaq at the 5.
Yes.
I would put Magic in there, Kobe, and the 4th one, or who's like my like final to round it out. I'm gonna go with a name that you wouldn't even. I'm gonna go with Pistol Pete.
What? Yeah, you are. Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I'm gonna go with Pistol Pete. I'm gonna go with Pistol. Someone brought up a project to me about Pistol Pete, and I did a deep dive into his life and world and what a trailblazer he was.
Right.
And the truth is, you can't compare these early guys to like the new game and whatnot, but like Pistol Pete was badass. Like what I've read about him and stuff. So. Who do we get there? LeBron, Shaq, Kobe, Pistol Pete, and what was
Magic.
I'm forgetting Magic. Yeah, I'll take that.
Solid. You'd win a few games.
Yeah, we do all right. Who's yours? You have to know yours off top.
I got Steve Nash, Kevin Garnett.
Wow,
huge KG guy. Wow. Magic Johnson.
Wow. This is a little bit of like a boutique top 5. Go ahead.
I mean, the Canadian roots, I got to go with Nashty, right?
Okay.
Right? I got it. Yeah. Local boy, Victoria, Vancouver, you got to stay soft and be, I can't not let that go. Although Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is pretty much taken over the crown in Canada, and I'm okay with that. He's not going to win the MVP because he won't get the votes, but man, he's putting up a good argument for it. Okay, what did I have there? Nash, Magic, KG. Jeez. I love Prime Shaq. Like I don't think anybody like you can't. I love Hakeem Olajuwon. I feel like he's maybe a little more like he's got the footwork, a little more skill there. But how do you? I don't know how you.
Shaq doesn't get the respect that for some reason he was too dominant for people to like. It was like it's just accepted.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's just big. It's like actually to be able to that big and do what he's doing is absolutely wild. Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. And then I got to go MJ. Got to go MJ. But
Yeah. Oh wait, did I not? Yeah, I put Jordan. Did I put Jordan in mine or no?
you didn't know, but that's okay. It's fine.
Oh, that's I can't believe I no look, Jordan is number 2 for me, hands down. Like, so I gotta correct the record on that. I'm gonna have to set up Pistol P for that. How did I not even have Jordan in there? That's my number 2. I got it.
You bring Pistol
LeBron
Pete
and
off the
Jordan.
bench for Magic, right? Backup point guards makes sense. Pass first guys, you know.
Yeah.
Do you have a hidden talent that anybody doesn't know about? Is there a hidden talent there?
I paint.
No?
I paint.
You paint?
Yeah,
like art?
This is mine.
You did? No way.
This is mine right here. Yeah. Yeah.
So where the heck do you find the time for that? Do you just make time for it?
Yeah. No, it's something I've been doing for five years now, and
Sweet.
it's funny
do you have a little
because
studio area?
that I've
or do you
I have a little loft space, and it's under Alias, and it's turned into a little side thing, but a great creative outlet. And
cool.
I'm just like a raw creator. I have a lot of energy, and I like to focus that in different ways.
So what made you decide that? Just, I want a new adventure. I want something to occupy my brain differently. Like, what was it?
I had an evening where I was like exposed to like painting for the first time, and I have no hand control. Like you couldn't read my handwriting. I couldn't sketch a picture of you, but I was like, what if I, tried something different with this paint? And I picked up some different tools, and really, like, I just saw this opportunity that I could. It's funny because it comes from sport. I'm very much somebody that believes in confident motion, and sport is about confident motion, and art is about confident motion. I believe that art is original ideas told confidently. And so when you see, a great painting or a great photo or a great musical performance, there's confidence behind it. There's an effortlessness. And, I knew that I wouldn't be able to make confident brushstrokes with a paintbrush or with a pen, but I was like, what if I could do this with a series of tools and objects, and found my own way to express my confidence with the medium. And that's really what led me to my painting career.
Wow. How nervous were you when you had that first piece that you're like, okay, I'm exposing this piece to the people, at least in my corner? Like, was that a little bit nerve wracking, or was it, did you just show it to the people who would just be like, hey, good job, man. Looks sweet. Like,
well, it was definitely kind of like it was like one person, then another person. Then I showed a couple of people that I'd worked with at Uninterrupted at the time, who, these are some of the world's best creators, and they had a lot of respect for me as a filmmaker, and just were very supportive. And I'm always really grateful to those initial group of people that I kind of shared that with, and they fostered that. And then, it's all kind of culminated in today. I'm wrapping up. I have a gallery pop up that ends tomorrow. So it's my first four pieces in a gallery that's wrapping up tomorrow. So it's over 5 years. It's really grown and evolved into something special.
Wow, that's freaking amazing, man. I love that.
Yeah.
That's wicked.
So I'm a big believer that
cool.
you can do anything. You can literally do anything. There are no rules or barriers when it comes to life and what you want to do.
That's so dope, man. I hate to follow up with this question now because you just stole the podcast. What's the favorite cereal? I mean, obviously, as grown-ups, maybe you do still eat cereal. We have a 7-year-old, so it's Lucky Charms if he gets them. But when you think back to your cereal days, what do you got?
I mean, I used to love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It was like my go-to. Yeah. Then, like, when I got a little older, I just got into like plain Special K. I used to just like love the texture of that. And now I don't really eat cereal, but I have oatmeal every single morning, like first thing, because it's good to get like a base of that before I start drinking coffee. So that's where that comes from.
Little berries, brown sugar, or just straight up?
I put some granola, some nuts, a little honey, and then mix it all in, and it does the job.
There you go. Nice. Well, listen, man, it's been super dope connecting with you. Amazing story, like a million things to think about life, about working hard, about seeing yourself for who you are and believing in yourself. Um, any last thoughts, reflections before we let you go? And then, is there someone out there, and maybe you don't want to answer it yet, you can tell me offline, but is someone else there with a cool story that would be a great guest to have on a hoops journey?
Yeah, yeah, I do have that.
Awesome.
I probably have more than one, but I
Sure.
definitely have a couple of recs for you.
Cool. Any last thoughts, ideas, reflections? Amazing to get to know you. I love what you're all about. I knew when Aaron, when he recommended you, I was like, okay, well, this will be good because getting to know him and I had such a great conversation. And like I mentioned, recommending him, he recommended Jack Jensen too, and it was just so I knew it was going to be fun, and it lived beyond the expectation. Learned a lot, and continued success to you. You've got so many more things to do and different ways to impact the earth. Last thoughts before we let you go and enjoy your evening?
I mean, not a ton other than like, look, I really, really appreciate you having me.
Mm,
I thought this was a really cool foray more into not just like what I've done, but just like how to think about things. And, I would just encourage anyone that's like really trying to get to the next stage of their life or achieve something that, you know, it's not necessarily about what you want to do as much as who you need to become to get there. And really thinking about the person that you need to be in order to achieve that really is the key. And so, yeah, it's just been a pleasure, and really appreciate you taking the time.
no worries. Whether it's life or sport, there's a lot of nuggets to take
Oh,
away
yeah.
from today's episode. Great reflection and thought, and like you said, continued success. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Aaron. I
You
appreciate
bet.
it.
Episode 132. Thanks for rolling with us if you still are. Thanks to our sponsors, and we will see you on the next one.